morning. Nancy, it's great to see you from Arizona. Must be warm enough for you to be here. Barely. So last week we talked about one of our 12 divine powers, divine faculties, divine gifts. And this is something that Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore wrote about decades and decades ago. So today I'd like to explore the activity of divine love. And Paula, your session is coming up not next Sunday, but a week from Sunday, right? The first Sunday of every month, Paula is holding a discussion group called Half Hour of Power. And so that group has covered faith, imagination, love, wisdom.
We haven't done imagination because that's June.
Okay. So there's strength. Okay. So I'm playing a little catch up with these messages. We have some great books on the topic. If any of you are interested in looking at it a little more deeply, the two that I'm using for today's material, one is the book by Charles Fillmore called The 12 Powers, and the other is, if not the newest, one of the newer on the market. It's written by the great Reverend Phil Pearson, who's been a Unity minister for something like 60 some years now, and his book is called The 12 Freedoms, and we have several others in Sacred Grounds and Books if you want to take a look at those. So here's the thing about our 12 powers. Every human being on the planet comes in to this life equipped with every single one of the 12 divine faculties. And each divine faculty has an associated disciple, a color, and a body point. Our disciple that's associated with divine love is, of course, the beloved disciple John, who always thought that he was Jesus' favorite, according to some Bible scholars. Not my take. And our body point is, of course, the heart center. Our color, which most of us would think red, right? But it's really pink, because red is all about life. So let's talk about the definition. Actually, this is one of the few 12 divine powers that I actually use Fillmore's definition of it. It is the pure essence of being, source, God, life, love. It is the pure essence of being that binds together the whole human family. And my mind just went to this Andreas bag that my sissy gave me several years ago. And I know that the drawing may be a little tough to see. The verbiage says, "I don't think of it as working for world peace," she said. "I think of it as just trying to get along in a really big, strange family." That right there is a metaphysical message about divine love, the essence of being that binds together the whole human family. This says a lot, doesn't it? Covers a lot of ground, covers a lot of levels. And if there's one important takeaway, I don't remember how many years ago, probably 20, 25 years ago, I don't remember the topic of the day, but our previous minister, Reverend Thelma, was talking, mentioning divine love. And I still remember her words. She said, "We're talking about the power of love, not the emotion of love." And I remember that striking me as a light bulb, understanding that there's a vast difference here. We're talking about something that far transcends our human ability to love or our human emotion of love. So what does it mean that it binds together the entire human family? It binds me with people that I love, binds me with people that I like, binds me with others that aren't necessarily labeled in the two aforementioned categories. Binds me with people I've never met. Binds me with people that I think I know, that I have some judgment about. We're connected with, and we're a part of every single human being on the planet at a spiritual level. That's huge. Bring to mind someone that you know or think you know that rents a whole lot of space in your mind, that you allow the space to, I should say, and you think they're doing it all wrong. I can think of someone. We are bound with every single human being. The person we sit beside, whether we know them or not. The person across the room, whose name we may or may not know. The ones who are with us on live stream right now, we can't see them physically, but we're bound with them. We are one with the folks in this city, in this state, in this country, and on this planet. So, how is that? How does that happen? Why is that? In New Thought, and in Unity in particular, we teach that we are all created from source, from life, love, law, mind, principle, source, spirit. We're created out of the same energy. And we are created first in the spiritual body. If you've heard me talk before about creation, you know that there are two creation stories in Genesis. And the first story is about our spiritual creation. I want to read this quote from Fillmore, primarily because I think these are some of the coolest words he's ever written. And I've read a lot of Fillmore several times. So he talks about the definition of love, the pure essence of being that binds together the whole human family. Listen to this. Without love, we should lose contact with our Mother Earth. And losing that, we should fly off into space and be lost in the stardust of unborn worlds. I think that sounds really cool. Being lost in the stardust of unborn worlds. So I guess I'll have to wait, I'll have to wait until my physical body lets go of the gravity here and I get to float around in the stardust of unborn worlds. So that's the only reason I shared that quote, because it's just such cool words. So in the 12 Freedoms, Reverend Pearson simplifies it, depending on how you look at it. He says, love is the faculty or the idea of oneness. Make sense? The idea of oneness. He said it's the basic energy of the universe, which is another very cool thought. It's the basic energy of the universe. That is one mighty, mighty power that we have within us. Yes? Fillmore says it's the greatest power. That was a mindfulness bell. Fillmore says it's the greatest power of all And again, last week we talked about judgment or wisdom, which is found in the solar plexus. And the love center is the heart. And this is what Fillmore calls our body brain. That with the right balance of judgment or wisdom and divine love, we sit in right judgment. We sit in perfect balance. You mentioned one of the commandments, Paula, in your daily word. Jesus said that the greatest commandment of all is that you shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, all of your soul, and all of your mind. Think about that. If we could invest our entire existence, if we could invest one day, one waking day, in living from this one decree, love our God with all of our heart, all of our mind, and all of our soul. If we could do that, can you see how we'd have no time, no energy, no thought for anything less than divine love? So when we take this instruction to heart, we live from a presence of divine being. And we live out this commandment from a sense of mindfulness that we are expressing the love of Source, the love of Spirit, that we are truly putting our heart into our everyday life. The energy of divine love is active because it is God idea in us and God idea in the universe, the basic energy of the universe. The second commandment, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Both of these commandments actually get, they're fairly familiar. They get bandied about. Love your neighbor as yourself. I feel like the as yourself part sort of trails off into the dust. Because my take on it has evolved to, I feel like we can love our neighbor, who's not the person sitting beside us necessarily, but it includes that person. Love them too. We can love our neighbor to the degree that we can truly see ourselves through the eyes of divine love. If I can't see myself with eyes of compassion and eyes of divine love, how can I possibly look at another to any greater degree? And Reverend Pearson wrote that the faculty of love is the master key to unlocking the fulfillment of the way that Source ideated us to be. Means us living out life in such a way that God might have envisioned. So what we're saying is that we're here to fulfill this demonstration of God's idea through activating this faculty of divine love and activating this idea of perfection. Let us make them in our image. And that idea of perfection comes out of the law of creation, and it comes out of the principle of divine love. So what I'm saying here is that we, my fellow spiritual travelers, you, me, we are the engine, we are the vessel through which divine love expresses in our lives and in our world. It's a ginormous spiritual responsibility. Imagine how it would be if we had no thought less than divine love. Wow, imagine who I would be, how we would be if we spoke no word less than the energy of divine love. I want to share these couple of sections from Pearson's book because I want to get it just right. He says the faculty of love is a powerful energy. It's the basic energy of the universe. Teilhard de Chardin, who Pearson has studied for decades. I took a class, elective class with him when I was at Unity Village. Teilhard de Chardin calls it the radial energy that has drawn all of the elements of life together, which results in a graduating process of evolution. So, in the principle of divine love comes all the elements of creation, spiritual, physical, and they demonstrate and evolve in a graduating process as we activate, as we live from, as we become the conduit and the vessel of divine love. We are constantly evolving. He said it's recognized as being not only the attracting power of the universe, but the binding power as well, which Fillmore talked about. So then he goes on to say, in our lives, the energy of the love faculty is measured in terms of how really one we think and feel with God. Where are we in our oneness with Spirit? Where are we in oneness with our neighbor, with ourselves, with all life on the planet? Not just people, but all life. He says it begins with our love for God, as it is that sense of oneness that allows us to feel one with everything. Remember, Jesus always talked about seek ye the kingdom and all else will follow. This is another way of describing the kingdom. Oneness with God. When we have that awareness, then we are automatically in oneness with all life on the planet. He says that it is through loving God that we can see God in all. To love ourselves is to love the God within. It is moving our level of love from a desire to have everything in our image to that of having it in God's image, which of course brought to mind my very favorite quote by spiritual writer Annie Lamott. We know we have created God in our image and likeness when God hates all the same people we do. You know how there are so many good causes in the name of Christianity, and we're just going to fix all the people on the planet that have something wrong with them. So the point of Pearson's, it is moving our level of love from a desire to have everything in our image, to have other folks behave, act, and look the way we think they should, to seeing the world from spirit eyes. You know, divine love is an interesting faculty because it's probably the one that most of us feel like we can most easily relate to, right? I mean, who doesn't know about love? Yet divine love is probably one of the most misunderstood of our 12 faculties, except I would contend divine order, but that's my own thing. So when we truly understand divine love as a key of healing for ourselves and for our world, when we know that divine love is truly a key of healing for ourselves and our world, then we understand that we hold the power of healing ourselves and our world. So here's an interesting contrast. Pearson wrote about love is often said is the opposite of fear. So where do our fearful thoughts come from? At its most base level, all fear, the idea of fear, is rooted in belief in separation. Belief that we are somehow separate from Source. You know, the heart is not an organ that is spiritually designed to hold fear, to hold bitterness, criticism, unforgiveness, hatred. I think some of us are aware that everyone experiences those emotions from time to time. It's a part of our human experience. But from a metaphysical sense, mind, body, spirit, all intertwined, when the heart holds these emotions for any sustained period of time, it is lethal to our spiritual well-being, certainly to our emotional well-being, and evidence of it's lethal to our physical well-being. So we have to become aware that this body brain of love and wisdom best functions when we consciously choose loving and wise ways of being. And I want to wrap up this morning with this one last concept with Pearson. He said the love faculty is expressed in its simplest form as desire. Expressed in its simplest form as desire. When we're feeling desire, often what we're looking for is some sense of connection or oneness with that which we desire. Excuse me. Principles of evolution are at the root of desire. For instance, when we first come through the veil, out of the womb, onto the planet, we want some oxygen right away. And then we want some food. And it goes beyond that to love, safety, and so on and so forth. So as we evolve in this human experience, we move from desire to please ourselves to a desire to please others. Now the dots on the continuum of desire invite us to further mature in our focus of love. Some of us are aware that we've had ever so subtle training in our ability to please others in order to be worthy of love. Anybody know that concept? That we need to meet needs, we need to look a certain way, we need to behave a certain way. So in that training process, we've also trained ourselves that others must please us in every way. They must meet our needs in order for us to be happy. They must meet our needs in a certain way so that we can bestow love upon them, rather than having to be in a state of berating them for not behaving in a certain way and not being lovable and making us feel a certain way. It's a real slippery slope. So when we live from this power and this action and this activity of divine love, we have moved from a place of I desire them to serve me to a consciousness that we are truly here to see the divine in others, to see the Christ consciousness, to see the divine being, to see the creation of perfection. And we get it that we're here to serve humanity from a place of divine love. You see, activating divine love is an interesting flip of the lens For those of us who have smartphones, we realize when we're taking photos that we can take a photo of something out there, or we can flip the lens and take this magical photo called a selfie. So activating this divine love is an interesting flipping of the lens, because we move the lens from having others serve us and having others be a certain way in order for them to be lovable. We flip the lens to within, and we understand as we quicken and activate our faculty of divine love, we get it, that we are here to be the energy, the expression, the fulfillment of divine love. So let's slide these thoughts into a meditative space. And I invite us to bring our attention to our heart space. And if you want to include the solar plexus, the body brain of love and wisdom. Let's begin by focusing on our heart space, knowing that we come out of, literally are created out of, an energy of divine love, an energy so much greater than our human mind can comprehend. And can we get in touch with the idea that this energy of divine love is pulsating as the universe, as our planet, as us in humanity, as us in our individual little skin suits? That the very core of us is the vibration out of which we came. And so in this holy space, we get in touch, we get into oneness, at one-ment with the truth that we are the energy of divine love, the moving, breathing, speaking, living energy of divine love. It's as if we're floating in a sea of peace when we have no thought, no action, less than the vibration of divine love. And we float in this space, in this knowing, in this truth, in the silence. Be still and know that I am love. And so it is. And so we trust. Amen and amen. Thank you, Nina and Johnny. We get to bless our tithes and offerings.